So those of you who are still trying to come to terms like how feminine am I, how masculine am I, that's therapy. I'm personally, just humanly, absolutely uninterested in that. It's very useful for all of us to do. It's like I'm not particularly into golf, but a lot of my friends golf. Have nothing against it. What I really am motivated to do personally, just karmically, is help people manifest art through their life. And one area that has been incredibly complicated for people, especially so-called spiritual practitioners, is the realm of sexuality. So let's frame this in how do we make our sexuality into an art that we offer in everyday life? Do you understand that difference? I mean, how do I take whatever I am sexually, just who I am as a sexual being at every dimension, and then offer that as art in my intimacy, but perhaps even in everyday life? If that's not your motivation, then whatever I say is not going to work for you or fit for you or apply to you. So, how many people have recognized that they and their partner were light in the midst of a sexual occasion? Raise your hand if you went, wow, I'm light, they're light. Not verbally, but okay, good, most of you. Mm-hmm. So those are these moments. I mean, you can't. And how many people during sex felt a kind of, not necessarily just the instantaneous and spontaneous recognition of what is, but also the skillful working out of that light through the body? Because you could recognize your light and still have, you could be like Ramana Maharshi or something, you know, who, as far as I know, didn't have sex or hardly had minimal bodily inhabitants or something. So you could recognize light and have no yogic karmas at all, or even therapeutic karmas. So you could recognize light, be totally dysfunctional, which Ramana Maharshi was. I mean, if he was in the United States, he'd be in an institution, as far as I know. I mean, I didn't know him personally, of course, but apparently he just sat there, and before people were feeding him in the basement of the temple, that's pretty dysfunctional. Any of you who were found, like, under a bridge, you would get therapy, or medication. I'm not trying to diss Ramana Maharshi, who I respect greatly. I just want to be clear that he was in an Indian culture that accounted for dysfunction and took care of it so that people who were alive as light but were absolutely dysfunctional could still exist in the culture. So therapy is, we could go into this, I don't want to be too theoretical today, but therapy is defined by the culture, what's dysfunctional in the culture. Ramana Maharshi didn't need therapy in the India he was in. He would here if he wanted to fit in. If he wanted to fit in. He wouldn't want to. But so you could be recognizing that you're light and totally inept. I mean, let's keep it all sexual since y'all seem to have it up for that. You could be impotent and frigid and enlightened. I mean, kind of speaking the colloquial. You could recognize that you're God and have no capacity to have sex whatsoever. You could recognize you're God and have sex that's totally dysfunctional at the therapeutic level, mommy, 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 or something. You could have sex, you could realize that you're a light and be kind of ratchety sexually. So like you're light, but just kind of like, hi. I mean, or have no relationship to sex at all, recognizing that you're light. So that's really important to understand, that your function, dysfunction, your flow, and your glow are unrelated. You could glow. You could be a human who glows. People come to you and bow because you're light, and be totally dysfunctional, fucked up, need therapy, and have no yogic capacities at all. You could be incredibly yogically adept. Look across the room, people have orgasms, move energy, and need a whole lot of therapy because you can't function whatsoever, and really not know that you're light. And you could be totally functional therapeutically. You could be integrated in culture, happy, healthy, able to communicate interpersonally, not project too much, not be too much transfer and stuff, all the psychological things. You're going to be aware of all that, and have no yoga capacity and not know your life. They're totally separate. There's no, you could grow in one and not the others. And this is true at every level, gross, subtle, causal. So it's really important to understand those differences, because I find that, especially amongst these kind of gatherings, they're confused. And you tend to mix like therapeutic modality with art, the artistic endeavor. Now, is that useful? Certainly. I mean, as a human being, do the therapy you need to do the art you need to do. You will grow as a human being thereby. But think of the greatest art you know. How fucked up are those people? Real fucked up in general. Did their art come from that? Yes. Would you have wanted them to do therapy? For their sake, perhaps, if you were concerned of them growing as a whole being. But in terms of what they offered the world, how much of that came from them taking their pain and others' pain and the incompleteness of existence and the inability to resolve everything and absolute conflict and opposition and yokely opening that so it comes out as art, through the tone of voice, through the painting, through the way you're making love. So your suffering and your pleasure, it's all expressed as art. I mean, that's where most art comes from, and to do a whole lot of therapy would ruin that in the moment. You could do therapy one day and art the next day, but I mean, you don't go from a thorough assessment of the way your object relations from your childhood affect your current thing and then do art. I mean, that's madness, actually. That's a kind of fascism, you know, where everyone's locked up in, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So back to sex. Therapy, yoga, spiritual practice as applied to sex.